I've always felt a certain affinity with the sea, and in my life I've never wanted to live more than 5 miles from it. Whether it's got anything to do with the moon's pull on its tidal system, or that both have had an influence in creativity, I really don't know. The piece Outgoing Tide, I would like to think, is symbolic of the push and pull, the give and take of nature's cycle.
Is this where the gig's at?
Basically, I always viewed guitar players as like, gosh, I wish I was out front, doing all of that stuff, and because those are the guys that pulled all the chicks. I've broken my nose, I've broken ribs on stage, I've had a lot of accidents. Basically, I'm very naked and exposed on this record. It's like wearing your heart on your sleeve. But of course, if I was naked and exposed, I wouldn't have a sleeve to put my heart upon. So it's a challenging album for me. There's a certain amount of security that I think you get from going on stage with a band. And I've been on stage with several, one of which was in the 60s, the Nice. And the other one in the 70s was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And there's a certain amount of security and protection behind going out there with your buddies on stage, rather than going out there just exposed and alone. It's given me a chance to really think about music and about the many styles that I've adopted throughout all of those years with all of my different bands. I was introduced to Alberto Ginastera, I would say around about 1968. I was just ecstatic about this. I'd never heard music like this before in my life. It's actually the way that Ginastera titles it. It's Danzas Criollas, but I call it Creole Dance, just to because I've added a few little bits myself. It's a very, very demanding piece. I do it very slowly, but you've also got these different time signatures which are very, very hard. That's basically it's slower. When you take it up to speed, it's like... When I was 13 years old, I was given as a present one of the very first reel-to-reel tape recorders. I made a series of recordings using this Philips tape recorder and had them transferred to vinyl and gave them to my grandparents. And well, it was only about a year ago I discovered that my mother still had the vinyl recording. It's quite strange to listen to me play at that age, Nobody's heard it before now. Ballad for a Common Man. Aaron Copland wrote 10 fanfares, and one of which, Fanfare for the Common Man, was used in his Third Symphony in the last movement. And I did an adaptation of that back in 1976. And it actually got to #2 in the charts. The #1 slot was taken up by the Sex Pistols. Well, there's only one small quote right at the very end, which is and over that A natural chord, you've got, it's kind of discordant, and then finish the whole thing that way. But there's very little reference made to Aaron Copland during the whole composition. Just that little bit at the end over that A chord, which is, I think, is like, ouch, you know. I had the good fortune to meet the great jazz pianist Oscar Peterson. It was a big shock to me, but when he said, "I'd like you to be with me on my television show." And I thought, oof, okay. And he said, "Yes, I'd like you to play one of your pieces." And I said, "Well, it would be a complete dream for me to play Honky Tonk Train Blues with you." And he said, "Absolutely, you know, it's great." So we had two pianos which faced each other, dueling pianos, and you hear that on this record. It's like playing with God, really. I hope the album would appeal to people that have the time to sit down and listen, and just that have the romantic side to them. They don't need to have that. You know, as I said earlier, this album is neither jazz, it's not classical, and it's definitely not New Age music. It's Keith Emerson.